Hey, our little secret real quick. This intro is recorded out of order. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 27 of All the Mods 10. I don't know what was up with me in the last episode, but in this one I'm feeling a whole lot better. And that might just be because I've taken some time and drank me my coffee and made a little bit of progress. And so, as a list of the progress I made between these episodes, I ended up making one Runic crucible. And the recipe for this I showed off in the previous one, and the arcane core and all of this is easy enough. I just had to wait to make this to get the what is these called, Aureoles, and yeah, everything else I already had. And then I also did the blood bee and the deorum bee, and I also got a lumber bee doing the soul tree log. Now the soul tree is kind of interesting. It is a part of the productive trees quest line, and the moment I looked at it I was cringing on the inside because I strongly dislike productive trees. The quest line requires you to get all the way far into one of these corners to get one of the saplings, which is somewhat annoying, and the only way to make progress is to use productive bees. They're made by the same guy. Anyways, fortunately for me, in-city raiding gives you a soul tree sapling, and this was checked off. And that's how, when I found out that I already had a soul tree sapling, I planted it, got a single log, put it here, and if you use fluid extractors on soul trees, you get unrefined soul. And unrefined soul basically is the ingredient to get refined souls, or liquid souls. So, that's what I needed the Runic Crucible for. And in all fairness, the Runic Crucible is a much more manageable 5x5 structure, whose blocks I can look at just by pressing shift on it. And I think the first part of this video is going to be me getting all of these blocks. Honestly, doing this is like a shopping list. 5 forbidden arcane crystal blocks. Check. 19 polished darkstone stairs. I think I can manage that. Polished darkstone stairs. 19 of them. I should just be able to do this. That makes 8. I have to make more of this. Just make stacks and stacks of this crap, because yep, this has been a life for the past few minutes. I need 19. Cool. 8 polished. That's cool. And crafting down these recipes, it turns out that I need a source relay to make the tiny source input hatch, which I do need to go in the system. And to make a source relay, it is an enchanting apparatus recipe. And for those of y'all who did not catch the episode where I explained how the enchanting apparatus automation works, what you got to do is, at least the way I'm doing it, I have to make sure that the item that goes in the middle is last. So I would like to tag this, get rid of this, and then put it back over here. Encode this recipe so the source relay goes in the middle. However, in hindsight, that works only when you have the requisite number of pedestals around your enchanting apparatus. I think I'll have to set up a second one that only has 4 for this to work. No biggie, I can just set one up right here, and I'm hoping that this stuff is far enough away. Yes, if you click this and you see other pedestals light up around it, that means you're in trouble. I click it, these pedestals don't light up, that means I am in the green. I just need to go down and copy the automation from these modular routers and pattern providers for this set of enchanting apparatus. So, for the sake of demonstration, I have set up the pattern provider and the modular routers. The pattern provider is pointing into this modular router, and, well, the other modular router will be the return side. So what I'm going to program in right now is going to be the return. I will shift right click the top, you can do any side, and this will basically pull the item from the center of the apparatus back in once the craft is complete. Then I want to send into the right. I guess I can configure it right here and say send to the right. And now for the sending side, for putting the recipe in, you're going to want a distributor module, and then select all the tops of these guys to be the destinations. And the sender module Mark II will put items into the apparatus. So, given that our order follows the items on the outside first, we gotta put this in first and then this. So the first 4 items that come into the buffer will end up in the 4 slots on the outside, and the last item to come in, well, the distributor module will try to do its business. It won't be able to because there's no empty spots, and then the center module will take over and put it in here. Let's try it. So now, if all of that yapping was worth it, I should be able to request a source relay depositor, and hopper, 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 and then the thing goes in the middle. I say this frequently, but I'll say it again. I really love how this crafts items. And once it's done, the modular router brings it back to me. And with that out of the way, I should be able to make the small source hatch pretty easily. That'll just have to craft out the plates and all that, but that's okay. I think that was all the hatches I did need. For sure. I got rid of the JEI for a second just so that I can read this properly, because with the JEI it cuts into the text there. So Control O to do that. I have the fluid input hatch, I have the fluid output hatch, I have the source input hatch, input output bus, and I guess that's it. It says polished darkstone over there too. I don't quite understand what that means, but it's alright. Oh wait, does that mean that I can have polished darkstone as one of the blocks there? Because if I can, then I'll just use that and just use the 3 hatches that I've made so far. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll try with the darkstone. If not, I'll just put in input and output buses and see what happens. Okay, and with all of the blocks in my inventory, I should now be able to put down the guy right here, and I think that is centered enough. There is a button here that I would like to now put behind my JEI. It's missing its structure, but as you can see, everything is checkmarked. If I click it, pretty much instantly the structure has come up. Now, status, no matching recipes found, but I don't like how this has placed the stairs. I would like to change how the stairs are placed. I'm assuming that's an allowed modification I can do, and that the orientations of these stairs don't matter. I would just like them to, be placed appropriately, at the very least. Is the structure still valid? It is. No matching recipe found. Okay, so I will have to replace a lot of stairs in the bigger machines, but you know what? It's worth the price. Because I don't like how this looks. And I have had to turn off shaders for you to see properly because the arcane crystal blocks are so goddamn bright with shaders on. But yeah, this is what's happened at the top. And I don't like this. And just in general, this is what the area around my base looks like. Honestly, not that bad. I've built worse looking bases in the past. This white expanse looks terrible, in my opinion, without the shading that the shaders provide. And see, isn't this so much nicer? With the light cascading down and out. It looks so much better. Although my night vision doesn't work, and I bet that has something to do with it. Oh, and now that this is done, I think this allows me to place down all of these blocks manually. So I would like the source input hatch to go there, the tiny hatch to go there, and I guess the normal fluid input hatch can go right here. Like that. And once they all update, that's the fluid output, that's the source input, and that is the fluid input. I'll probably move these around so that they make more sense. I felt a little bit bad, so I made a tiny item output and a fluid output. And now I'm going to replace this bit with just a polished darkstone. That should hypothetically complete the structure once I put this down. 2 inputs on this side, 2 outputs on that side. I'm going to wire them underground. Basically set up a tiny subnet and have the inputs go down and have the inputs come up, have the outputs go down, and pretty much just as I'm handling the Ars Nouveau crafting out there, I'm going to do it here, where a pattern provider provides into an interface, and then all of the outputs go back into the pattern provider to finish the craft. Let's hope that works. And only because you guys ask me every time how I set up crafting subnets, I'm going to do it once again, live on camera for y'all to watch. Hopefully this goes pretty well for being done in one take. Pattern provider pointing up into an ingredient buffer. Whatever is in the pattern provider will end up in the buffer. Now I want the buffer to be read as a storage for anything that is connected outside it. And in our case, that happens to be these buses. I need a way out, so I'll just break this block. And here we go. We go up, up, a little bit further, and then export items into the input for the machine. On the other side, we will import items into the system. So we do that, and that. And I gotta go back down this time. Like so. We come back down, come down, and hypothetically, I should be able to use the return inventory of the pattern provider as storage for this subnet. So just gotta do this and hook these up. Now, for power, I brought along some quartz fiber. I should be able to put one here and one here. This powers that, which will power this subnet once I can put it in the correct place. And this should also power this subnet once I connect all of this together. And now, with a bound wireless card, which is bound to the wireless controller out there, I should be able to put one of these over here, hook these up to each other, and then fly on over to the other side and test it out to see if it works. Of course, I would have to put the pattern in the pattern provider first, and in this case, using a Certus quartz knife. Holy crap, I messed that one up. You can rename this pattern provider to be Runic. What was this thing called again? Crucible. Runic Crucible. I had to dig in my brain for a second here. Runic Crucible. Now, in my pattern provider terminal, I should be able to search for Runic, and the Runic Crucible shows up. And this is especially useful when you're not able to access the pattern providers fairly easily. For example, in this case. So let's encode our first ever recipe, shall we? I want to craft liquid oil. Let's try this one. And it will use an amount of water, and how much source was it again? 1,000 source. And apparently it doesn't accept source as a liquid that it can put in, but that's quite alright. You know, in hindsight, after looking at the recipe that I just ended up crafting for liquid souls, I remembered that this has a soul input, and I never did make an item input hatch. Super simple. But what I have realized is that the source is used in every single Runic Crucible recipe. So that requires source, that requires source, all of these require source. So it makes more sense for me to have the source inputs separated and be passively filled with source all the time, because I always need it. And given that I always need it, I might as well just connect it directly up to the system. But that's a problem, because that's going to be connecting it up to the subnet, but now it should just be as simple as running another cable down and pulling this through here. I don't know why I've done that, but that works. And with a slightly filled source jar, I can just right click this in here, and now this knows to output source into this tank right here. This is slowly filling up with source. Excellent. Okay, so I have news. I have spent the better part of the past hour trying to set up this, and maybe it was the fact that I was missing hatches and that I was using polished darkstone in these corners. But it turns out that this thing is just bugged at the moment, and it kind of doesn't understand the fact that it's got a fluid output hatch right there. And the devs are fixing this, so the best I can do right now is make it look all pretty with some facades on it and then forget about it, because I cannot actually use this until it's fixed. So I'm just going to cover it up and pretend like this automation just simply works, and I'm going to leave it alone. I'm a little bit sad though, because almost all the recipes use fluid output hatches, and that kind of faults my fusion plans, doesn't it? Given that slightly sad news that I have just found out about the multi-blocks not working, I'm going to retire these blocks for now and forget about it. In the meantime though, I would like to step into thermal evaporation towers to eventually automate the production of lithium. Lithium, which will then be used to make induction providers, which can then be used for energy inputs, or which will have to be used for energy inputs, but also for the multi-block battery that Mechanism provides, which I believe is called the induction matrix, if memory serves me right. So the thermal evaporation tower is a multi-block for Mechanism that is built with these blocks, and well, of course, to start off you gotta encode some recipes because you're gonna need a lot of these. And unlike a bunch of other multi-blocks, this one is going to be built in a 4x4, which is why I'm saving this corner for this guy right here. And you gotta build up the walls, like so. Ooh, never mind. And once you have something like this, I think it has to be at least 2 blocks tall. That's an unfortunate accident. Once you have this, you can put down a controller right here and it'll be recognized as a multi-block. A valve goes on the side and a controller goes here. I think this needs to be taller though. Let's see. I do really like how this looks. And maybe, oh, it might be because of this thing that's hanging out. And there it is. Now this takes in water and produces brine. And if you put brine into it, it produces lithium. And because it's an evaporation tower, all you really need to do is provide it with some amount of heat. Yeah, that also counts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use resistive heaters on the sides here. And of course, whether you're inputting or outputting, you're going to need to have valves to control the flow of fluids and heat. I'm going to have internal water blocks in the middle to pass water into both of these. And they're going to output all of their fluids into an interface in between them. And as you can see, the internal water block has put water into the tar, and this is currently consuming an amount of power, which is not enough. I would like to give it more power by using some gates. Let's just use this one. Actually, I can just use the 5000 FE guy and have it go full tilt. Kind of like this. The water block is constantly putting into... Oh, that's not what I wanted to do at all. The water block is constantly putting into this guy, and this is at its max temperature. I don't care about the temperature, in all fairness, as long as it's large. And it's rapidly turning all the water into brine. All that brine is now going into this interface, which I will eventually hook up into my system. And I guess I'll just set up more of these. Follow the same principle. Put one of these there, put one of those there. But not there, I'm looking at the wrong block. I'm looking at the right block, it's placed on the wrong one. I hate that feature. Like that. Just gotta configure this guy to be a puller on this side too, and it'll be golden. I can't set it quite yet because this is not recognized as an output. And this one too is now ready. And you can see just how quickly this is producing brine. Perfect. Now that that's done, I can do the same right here. And I believe because I'd set the south-facing pipe to be a pull, this is already pulling into this interface. Now I just copy and paste this over here. And I do believe this should just work like that. I should just be able to paste everything right there. And given that it is pulling out of the system, everything should be in place. Everything except the valves, which I have run out of apparently. This one's producing brine though, so that means this is complete. And as promised, that has worked. And I'm just going to hook up all of these with cable to eventually automate this process. I have just noticed that I'm using dense cable. There's no reason for me to be using dense cable, no particular reason at the very least. And I would prefer if this guy was facing here and was placed in this direction, just so that it would leave these two for inputs and outputs. So all of those interfaces will eventually come online, eat up all of that brine, which will be liquid brine, and then try to go into the system, I believe. I'll have to allocate some space for liquid brine, and then export liquid brine into here, which will then turn into liquid lithium. Yeah. So these things have been acceleration carded out the wazoo. I need regular old cables now, because I'm making a direct connection to these. And I believe I need a new connection point for this thing. And I think I'm just going to reuse this guy right here, A7EC. This is the one that's controlling the automation of the drigmies and the crafting of the... what's that thing called? The Enchanting apparatus. Right. And also now the Runic thing. But this also now controls all of this stuff. So if there's a chemical drive somewhere that allows me to input all of the brine will now be emptied out of this into the interfaces, assuming the brine has somewhere to go. And after giving the brine some space, all of that brine is now going into a chemical cell that it is sharing with liquid lithium. Lithium that is coming in by the bucket rather rapidly. I have set up the machines pretty much the same way. In fact, I think the only difference at the moment happens to be the amount of power that these resistive heaters are set to. This is using 500 FE per tick. This is using 5000 FE per tick. So just got to change these numbers around a bit and we'll be golden. Okay, all of these numbers have been now changed. This should now be producing a whole boatload, 200 or more millibuckets per tick. This is producing 1000 millibuckets per tick. So 1.3 buckets per tick over here, 1.3 buckets per tick over here. This number is steadily going up as temperature goes up. This is 2. And this is now pumping lithium out like there's no tomorrow. Hell yeah. Now liquid lithium is super important because liquid lithium turns into gaseous lithium and the gaseous lithium turns into tritium, which is what we will be using for those fancy machines in the future. But for now, what I want is the lithium dust, which comes from crystallizing lithium 100 millibuckets at a time in a chemical crystallizer. And of course, this is a Runic variant, politely teasing me this entire time. And to turn that lithium into crystals, we just do that, and then that. Now, this would have an extended import with liquid lithium. Like so. And that would eventually end up in here, I would imagine. That's an input. I would like everything to be clear. Okay, the fluid has been configured to be input on the left, and the chemical is output to the top. This thing should be chemicals input from the bottom, and this, as it gets lithium or liquid or lithium gas, it'll produce lithium dust. I can't get my words out. And this item I would like to eject to the right, which will be this drawer full of lithium. Of course, I'll go ahead and link this to that controller right there, and we'll be golden now because now I'm producing lithium. Once I augment both of these machines, they'll rip right up and produce oh so much lithium for me. And with all of its upgrades in place now, these are now producing lithium oh so fast. And I would like to use all of that lithium to set up one of those big giant batteries in this space right here. I've been holding on to this space for a while for the simple reason that I want to fill it up with batteries. And yes, I am taking away the white anti-block on this line. Right, this trim of black blocks has to go because this was temporary. While I was trying to see what putting blocks over here would look like if I was to copy and paste the reactors out here. But no, this is going to be a big battery from the roof all the way down into the floor. So to make this big induction matrix, I'm just going to craft a whole bunch of these, which are the induction casings. These are the framing blocks, kind of like the reactors. You build them up on the edges. Not like that, that's for sure. Kind of like this, actually. And once you have the frames in place, you gotta fill in the top and the bottom because, well, those are the only places where you cannot have windows. So, kind of like that. And the rest can be structural glass or reactor glass, whatever you want. I still happen to have a ton of reactor glass left over, so that's what I'm gonna use. I do believe this can be used there, right? Yeah, it does say there in the induction matrix multi-block component. Alright, cool. So, fill in the size now. And what you should end up with is a box. Cool. Now you need the ports. And to buffer power from the system, the ME system that is, as well as my Ender gate system, I have added inputs and outputs on both sides. Now, these will be limited by the throughput of the gates on one side, which is 1,000,000 RF per tick. And on the other side, it'll be limited by whatever an extended interface with an induction card can handle. But at the moment, this is just a big empty box. Now, what goes inside the box is the induction cells, which are the batteries, and the induction providers, which you can consider the transmitter receivers, or the transceivers, if you will. Now, every single provider you put into this matrix adds 52 million FE of transmission power, and every single induction cell you add adds 1.6 tera FE of capacity. And it's important to note that you don't have to fill this up. You can just put a single block in the corner, and in the past, I have actually completed entire mod packs with this being a 3x3 in like a flat cuboid instead of, this behemoth behind me, and this can be built up to, I think, at 17 by 17 or 18 by 18, something like the size of the reactor there. So you can hoard a lot of power with these guys. And of course, it follows the regular mechanism progression of basic, advanced, elite, and then ultimate. And I think with that, I should be able to request at least one of these, and that's already done. That's impressive. And I think, given that I have 9, I will request, given that I have 1, I will request 9 more. And I wonder what it's up to. I bet it's upcrafting a whole bunch of things. Ooh, it's already used 1,000. Okay, it's making a bunch of infused alloy. That's going to take a while. In the meantime, I want to show this off, because I already have this and that. I can already go in and put this in here. Put that in a corner there, put that in that corner. And if I can make my way out... Oh, crap. Okay. I need a taller window to get out. That's alright. Now, if I click this, that's completely empty, and those two have connected to each other. You can see the textures. Yeah. And now to fill it with power. And hey, look at that. This is now getting a constant input of 1,000,000 FE per tick, and the output is just about 1,000,000 FE per tick. But because it's not constantly 1,000,000 FE per tick, this is slowly building up a charge. Now, I wonder if that means that this battery is slowly draining, and the answer is no. This is sort of just keeping up. That basically then means that I'm draining this battery right here. And now the steam turbine is working much harder to keep everything afloat. Perfect. Anyways, while this is charging up, I would like to have a wireless connection to somewhere or the other that can then provide this place with some power, both in and out, because both of these extended interfaces are holding onto a whole boatload of power right now. I can then link it using this linking tool right here to hopefully someplace else. Where can I just toss one random block where it won't feel out of place? All of these sides are occupied. There is an empty spot up here, and there's empty spots up here. I think I'll put it down right here. Yeah, this will work. Link that to that. And now, there should be a whole boatload of power going in and out using the ME system as well. Ooh, I can't put it there because the device is now missing a channel. Okay, I should have seen that coming. I need to put it somewhere where I can actually have a connection. And I guess that means it has to be down here then. Hook that up and hook this up to that. Now let's see what happens when it turns back on, because currently it's just 1M and 1M on both ends. And sure enough, my input has now been saturated at 52 million or mega FE per tick, and the output is a steady 36 mega FE per tick. And so the difference, which is about 20 million FE per tick, is, I imagine, what the combined output of these reactors and that turbine is. I would also imagine that this turbine is now constantly running at 2 million FE per tick. So where's all that extra power coming from, I wonder? Because that's almost 20, right? Oh, it's because it's draining the entire system. I think it'll be okay, because that is, well, not as much as this entire thing. This is 1.6 tera FE, and that is just 237 giga FE. And there's more on the way. But I do believe that that is the combined total output of everything I have at the moment. Yeah, cool. You know, given the fact that I have saturated this somehow, I think it's time for me to make a second induction provider. And by the way, if you see this happening to you, where your stuff's constantly moving around, if you hold shift, it stops moving. If I let go of shift, it moves again. If I hold down shift and then I can middle click the provider, I can request another craft, and it'll eventually craft one up for me. And you know, now that these induction auto crafts are complete, I can get to show off the best part about using something like this. And it's the fact that, oh hey, I just broke into this thing, and I can now put in the rest of these things. And once I'm done, I can just get up and leave. If I can fit through the door again. Never thought this would be the problem in my life, but you know what? Just bigger window always helps. And once I close this back up, the capacity is now 16 tera Fe, and the input is now double of what it used to be. And this does mean that it is now draining the Fe from the system much faster than before, but I would imagine that the output will eventually take over and then power the rest of the system through this extended bus. Or so I hope. And all that head scratching about why I'm unable to manage energy properly has led me to a better solution overall. What I've ended up doing is use this as a true buffer between my turbine and my network by setting up another quantum entanglopoter that is transmitting energy from my turbine right there to my induction matrix down there. Now, this induction matrix is effectively a massive 16 tera Fe buffer that eventually unloads into my ME system, and thus my ME system is slowly charging up. I'd say this is a pretty cool revelation. I've never set it up this way before, especially because I've never used induction cards before. This is much easier to do with flux networks because you can just set priorities for inputs and outputs in separate networks. But I think something similar has been achieved with those right there. So for now, I get to once again clear out parts of this and leave some parts behind. I'm also done with this. And in case you haven't noticed, I tend to use this list as a to-do list. And going back in my to-do list, I was honestly working towards the blastproof alloy casing, and the next step for that will be titanium and then tungsten. Currently, titanium comes from hot ingots, and hot ingots come from either raw titanium with manganese sulfuric solution or with titanium dust. And fortunately for me, raw titanium is easy enough to automate. I don't even need the ore because getting the B is super simple. It is just diamond B and iron B, which makes a titanium B. I can do that. And here we have 5 fully grown titanium Bs. I just need a block of titanium to be their home or pollinating point. And titanium I should have a little bit of. Right here. 8. But hey, macerating it gives me 3, so I should just be able to drag and drop this into one of the macerators I have. Oh, by the way, this just reminds me, if you're having this issue, you could just reload your shaders. This might take a while because I'm recording. It didn't. And that problem goes away. I bet it happens because it's on a chunk boundary or something. Yeah. And this should be done by now. I should have enough titanium raw to go ahead and probably put it in an EBF. But that requires me to upgrade to the Cantile tier. And all of my things at the moment are at the Cooper Nickel. So, do I just do all of these? Because I do have everything I need for Cantile, I believe. Yeah, I totally have everything. I was just going down the crafting chain. And it requires chromium dust, stainless steel dust, and aluminum dust. Which makes Cantile dust. Which then crafts up into, or tiny dust, which dust and then hot ingot and then plate wire, cable, and then coil. And this should be the last of the recipes I'm encoding here. The only problem at the moment is that to make these coils, I've had to, because I only have one vacuum freezer, I've had to remove its overdrive module. And because it's constantly exporting the hot ingots to cool them down, it's not actually a recipe. So when I search for Cantile and try to request 46 of these, it'll say it's missing 185 ingots. And to compensate, I'll have to request 100 and whatever ingots of hot Cantile so that it cools them down, and then they'll be available for the coils. It's a suboptimal solution, but it works. Because it's not necessary to do it the right way as long as it gets done the jank way first. Keep that in mind. Alright, I got tired of waiting. I'm just gonna request 16 of these, and it has everything it needs. I'm just gonna make this one the Cantile tier and upgrade these as it goes along. In the meantime, I've also made myself the Ruby and the Chromium B. And I'm also requesting the Chromium to get the Chromium block for the Chromium B. And I've also made the Titanium B, fun fact. But I need Titanium for the block for Titanium B, which needs the EBFs to be a little bit free. So, and in the time that I've set this up, actually, all of the Cantile coils are back. So, it's upgrade time. And given that I'd like to have Titanium passived, I am gonna do this and have both of these pump in the magnesium solution thing and the titanium raw into the thing. And this is done. That's also done in the time that it took. So manganese goes in the fluid bus, and the export bus gets the raw titanium. And I believe if I just hook this up to that there, this should be online. And that's the energy, that's the fluid output, so this would go in here. And that's the item output, so hot titanium should come out here. Hypothetically now, I should be getting hot titanium in my system. Or at the very least, this should be processing hot titanium. It doesn't seem to be. Oh, well, it's getting the sulfuric solution at the very least. And the raw titanium, so why is it not active? Interesting. It wasn't working because it didn't have enough sulfuric solution. It comes in bursts, but in the meantime, it's completely filled up on raw titanium. How did I get more raw titanium, you ask? It's because even though I might only have 11 titanium in the system, I used the first 9 to make that block there, which is now feeding the bees. And since the bees are well fed and happy, that means that I now have infinite raw titanium, and it's only being limited by the rate of the production of the manganese sulfuric solution thing. And with chromium, titanium, and lithium out of the way, I'm going to wrap this episode up right here, and that is simply because I'm now in update 2.6, which allegedly fixes the issues with fluid hatches, which means I get to play around with those machines behind me now. Peace out, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.